Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast, a show for artists, creators, creative entrepreneurs to have heartfelt conversations about living a creative life and a career. As you go into this show, hear your favorite creators talk about money, mindset, business, creativity, and everything else that goes behind into making a life that we all adore as an artist. Hear the messy and the wonderful side of being a creative. I am your host, Charika Arora, an artist, creator, and founder of Arts to Hearts project. Thank you for joining me here. Let's jump right in. Hi, Sara. Hi, Jason. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Oh my God. I am so excited. I really am truly excited. And I'm not saying this just because you're a guest and I don't I am excited for all episodes, but this is a very different feeling because this is like a constant in my life because a lot of our community and my friends that I really, share my creative life with and a lot of who I am are based in the US, especially where you guys are. So a lot of my friends have actually shown with you, worked with you. I remember when you were doing this fundraiser for the gallery. I remember it felt so personal. It was like something like we did from Arts to Hearts. We shared it on our email list. We should share it on our Instagram. So it really feels like I've known you guys, even though I know this is the first time we are speaking in person, but it truly feels differently.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you. That's such a warm welcome. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for, the support that you've shown us, even though we all haven't met before in person or even this way.
Yes. No, thank you so much for the work you do. And I think,
It's never too late.
yes, it's never, that's true. We made it. We made it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is a very special episode because I have it's like it feels home. But before we get into it, why don't you guys introduce yourself and where you're from, what you do for people who are listening? But I'm sure a lot of people already would know you on the podcast today.
So I am Sarah McCorriston. I co-founded Paradigm Gallery with Jason Chen 12 and a half years ago. And we're still working together and running the gallery today. And as far as where am I from, I'm actually from just outside of Philadelphia. So New York and Philadelphia, kind of in between. And so New York and Philadelphia were both cities I spent a lot of time in growing up. And so Philadelphia has been home for a long time for me.
Wow, that's amazing. What about you, Jason?
Yes, I'm Jason Chen. As Sarah mentioned, we started Paradigm 12 years ago, and we're still working together. And she hasn't killed me yet, so yay!
12 and a half
I'm
years.
originally yes, I'm originally from China. So I'm an immigrant. So I moved here when I was 13 with my family. Philadelphia is the first city that I've been in America. And I feel like I haven't left since. I mean, I lived in New Jersey for a while, but who's counting those years? Philly's what matters to me. So yeah, that's pretty much my background. And Sarah and I met at University of the Arts.
Oh yes, I would really want to know how because I know Jason, you're a photographer and you're an artist yourself. And Sarah, let's touch a little bit about what you guys were doing before you started Paradigm and how did you meet?
Jason and I met around 2007 when we were both at University of the Arts. We were in different schools within or different colleges within the University of the Arts. Jason was in College of Fine Art, and then I was in the Performing Arts College. I was a theater design major, so set design, costume, lighting, sound, makeup, all of that. And Jason was an animation major with a photography minor. And because I was really into styling and fashion through everything I was doing for theater and dance, and Jason was very much into fashion photography. The collaboration between the two of us, when my photography student roommates had introduced us, us collaborating, it just made a lot of sense. And so we started working together on a lot of Jason's photo shoots and with a lot of the dancers that I regularly worked with, and um, and I, I hope I'm not
No.
repeating myself. But yeah, um, but it really still comes through in Jason's artwork to this day. I think that the appreciation for the movement from dancers from the very beginning of us working together, and yeah, we've continued collaborating together ever since, and on bigger and bigger things.
Tell me something. Why a gallery? How has that, like, why did you guys, I mean, you, Jason, were an artist. Why did you choose a path of building a gallery space? And even for you, Sarah, I think like it wasn't an obvious choice as like how did that come into being?
Well, that kind of started um, when we graduated. After we graduated, we were both looking for a studio space to actually do our own work and for our own practice. And then um, I had an idea. Was talking to Sarah over dinner one time, and I was saying that maybe when we're not using the studio, the space, we could use it as like a gallery space to showcase our work and like our friends' work. And Sarah kind of took that to heart and started looking at spaces because we already been looking at spaces for studio space anyway. So um, and the next thing we know, Sarah's like, I found a space. And we we had our first show and it was like, okay, this makes more sense as a gallery. Um and that kind of happened, and 12 years later we're here.
I'm just asking, like, did you like actually make the entire space into the gallery space, or did you actually keep a studio space or not?
The whole
Oh
space
wow.
became a gallery, really. I mean, I still worked in the basement and I did a lot of sewing in the basement. The basement really wasn't the best place for Jason to use as a photo studio, though. I had really low ceilings. It did not have any cleared out areas that were all that useful for what he needed it to be. So it and it was a really small space, and it was, and it was
I did use the upstairs
that's
for
good.
like one or twice for like, different things. And let's be honest, it's like I don't actually do photo shoots like a whole lot. So it's not
Yeah.
that I don't get to use it because
Mhm.
it's too small. It's just it just wasn't the time when I needed it. And I think at the time I was also doing a lot of like available lights and stuff like that. So I was doing on location a lot, shooting outside a lot, and it wasn't really like needed a studio space, um but we, I still use the space for shoots here and there.
Wow.
And I had had a studio prior, and I needed studio space for doing things like sewing costumes and garments, and so I was definitely working in the basement a lot.
You know what? Now, when I know your context, and I like even in the beginning of a conversation, I said like I'm a person of whys, and I always try to connect the dots. And now that I know your like individual stories, I can really put together like the shows that you curate. It really makes so much sense, and I think that's also why I gravitate a lot towards your curation and the way you work, because I truly believe I really believe that what we as artists create, like, I think the community that you've been creating so far, 12 and a half years, I'm sitting in one part of India and I truly admire what you do. And I think it's the energy that flows. And I really think it comes as artists. You experience and you create for yourself and for people of your own community. I think really makes a difference. And then also, like, the shows that you've been curating, like Sarah's work, like I can see like a pattern of why a lot of things come out the way they do because of who you as two individuals are.
Absolutely. I mean, we show through in our curation so much.
Yeah, I would say that through our earlier curation, it speaks more to our background,
Yeah.
but as the gallery grows, it definitely turned into
Yeah.
something a little bit more different. It's definitely a little bit more
Yeah.
fine art and and commercial focus in a way, but at the same
Yes.
time, like you can still see some of the tether of like how we curate within our own art form, and uh, uh, how our aesthetic has maintained and changed over time.
That's very true. And I think also, um, what I see, I was just seeing Sara's show on the website also. And I think sometimes just you feel like the kind of work that you've also shown, it also shows a lot more openness and experimentation that I think you as artists who's built a space, it reflects in your intellect. I think it just reflects in the ways that you do business.
That's good to hear. I think that the encouraging installation and exploration is like definitely taps into our creative side and our way that we curate with artists.
I don't know if like this is how Sarah worked with her expertise, because like when I curate, I have to separate myself as an artist to really do the curation, because there
Yeah.
are, like, as an artist, I have a separate ego for how I look at artwork and such, so like I have a different standard for doing that. But as a curator, I'm looking at artwork through the lens of how does this fit into paradigm as like our aesthetic, and um does it fit into our aesthetic, so it's a very different, it's a different muscle that I'm exercising when it comes to curation and actually practicing my own art.
It's like two different canvases that you're working on. What about you, Sarah?
I think for me, with the way, well, I don't, my fine art practice has really, my creative practice, I should say, has really all gone into the gallery. And I think that that's one of the changes that's happened on my end, and kind of how Jason was saying, the way we curate differently. And part of that is because I don't have a separate art practice really myself. Like when I make art, it's typically just for
Yeah.
me at this point in my life, because I love running the business so much. And so I think that I don't feel like I have to create as much separation. It also makes it so that like I can talk to Jason and we can talk about curating his
Yeah.
artwork. And I can, because it's not easy to curate your
Absolutely.
own work. And so Jason and I are able to have those conversations. Yeah, because I've kind of separated myself from having a separate artistic practice myself. It's really all goes into the gallery now for me.
That's amazing. Tell me something. What is paradigm to each of you today? Like we spoken, like it's taken its own shape. It's independent of your individual identities, and it's been 12 and a half years, which is not a small time. I think it's a pretty big time and long time for something to survive this long. And I think you've had immense support from the community. What is paradigm, and what's your vision for paradigm today?
Jason?
Well, usually I get to build on your answers, but
You got yours.
yeah. Paradigm to me, first and
Huh.
foremost, it's a family. I think that, like, it's going from just between Sarah and I, building this gallery space, that really in the beginning I was really hoping to show more of my work and show more Sarah's work, but it kind of turned into a platform for artist friends that we know, and thus how our families start growing as Paradigm family, and like artists that we have worked with since the beginning of Paradigm, we're still working with them, and we our artists grow as we grow. And besides that, now we have different kinds of support system, like our friends all over the world that have worked with us, that have curated with us. um, we would, see each other at art fairs and
Yeah.
pick up where we left off like a year or two ago, and it just feels like a great community to us. Um and Paradigm itself, it's like an inspiration for me and for my own practice, because through curation, I learn a little bit different things every time, and I would try to maybe apply that to my own practice when I actually get to do the work. Um, and uh, and I feel like that is, keeping me on my toe to be keeping up with like my own practice, keeping up with Paradigm's aesthetic, and whether or
Yeah.
not I'm showing a Paradigm, I know my
Yeah.
work is can be better and better every time. So that is what Paradigm means to me right
Yeah.
now, but it also means I'm seeing the future. It's much bigger and much broader in the sense of our connection through this to the city, to the artists, and um, to the art world, technically.
I love that. And I completely get what you're saying, how your work informs. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I love everything you just said, Jason. I feel all of that so much. Glad you went first.
Now you get to build on
Uh,
that.
yeah, I love. Yeah, exactly. I love that you talked about family because I do constantly feel like wherever we go in the world, we have all these connections with people kind of wherever we go, and it's all through working together and art and but all these memories we've created with all these different people too. And a lot of us have like been through some stuff together. I mean, even if whether that's life things or that, and because so often like art is so personal, and so can't imagine working with all of the artists that we work with if we didn't have these deep relationships with so many of them, because you're creating like art is such a personal creation. So
Absolutely.
um, yeah, it's so important that we have all these connections with people around the world, and the artists that we exhibit, especially the ones we've been working with for a long time, and they've become some of our closest friends in our lives. Um and then the connection to the business itself. I like that Jason and I have constantly checked in with each other over the years about, and sometimes I have to answer like, well, what's Paradigm going to be in 5 years? And Jason and I are like in a good way. We're constantly figuring out what the next steps are in our own lives and with our business. And I think that the business wouldn't have lasted as long as it had we not been willing to relook at what we're doing, relook at what we're getting out of it, do check-ins, talk to each other about when we're unhappy, and talk to each other about when it's a struggle and our roles in the business. Because basically this entire time of running the business, it's been on and off
Yeah.
growing pains, because we do keep growing. And it's been it makes me really excited to move forward with the business, because I think that we do dream big, but I think that right now we do it with such a foundation for the business. And I think that and like the community support that we have felt during the past few years has also been like, especially ever since our 10-year anniversary and all the people that came out for that. And then a few weeks later, the pandemic hit, and the support that we've received and the messages and these reminders that because sometimes we're just like two people working at 2 a.m. and like not even knowing if anyone's noticing anything we're doing. And sometimes you feel pretty alone in what you're doing, and then people reach out and show so much love and talk about what you're doing and what it means to them, and then it's like it's all so worth it. And then you're like, okay, I can get up and I can do it again. And okay, anyone's watching or anyone's listening or anyone. I think that I've personally realized how big and wide reaching our community is over the past 3 years, maybe more than I
Yeah.
ever have. And that makes me really excited to find out what's next.
I remember with the gallery space that happened, and it was so heartwarming to see so many people on the internet, in person, you know, shouting on the roof, like, just making sure that everything felt personal. Like, you could see the amount of effort people were making, the amount, how much it felt like it wouldn't be a loss to you, but it would be a loss to each one of us. What can you talk a little bit about that? Because how has that panned out, the situation? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're still kind of in it. I would say it's been a year and a half of us doing a little bit of soul searching and thinking about what's next for what's next for the business. But we did unfortunately get outbid for our building. However, so much support came through for us that we just feel more support, like so supported, so that like no matter what happens, our community is
Yeah.
going to be here for us. And that made it so that like we didn't have to keep it
Yeah.
all inside. And that was such a huge help because it's been now a year and a half of us, okay, what is our long-term plan, and us doing that soul searching. And it's actually opened up our eyes to what we want the business to be, and made us reevaluate, made us say, well, maybe we weren't actually maybe we should reevaluate what those goals and dreams are. And now that we know that we have this support behind us no matter what we do next. And so we don't, we haven't reached a conclusion yet. However, we feel so well equipped through from this
Yeah.
learning experience to be able to make our next moves. It makes me more like confident and more excited than I think I've ever been about this business and it growing together, because we know we have people like in the hardest times we've ever
Yeah.
experienced here to lift us up um and help us find what's next.
That's true. What about you, Jason? What do you have to say about this?
Well, uh, like Sarah said, I definitely felt the love from our community and the support from our friends and family. And yeah, it's we see this as a little bit of hiccup, and we just have to keep going and move
Yeah.
forward, just like how we have been for the last 12 years. You know,
Yeah.
even for the pandemic, like during the pandemic, we're constantly reevaluating, we're constantly reinventing ourselves, doing more things so that we are
Accessible.
keeping our model, being making art accessible, making art, it's that it's still affordable and be able to be seen by many people. So we have adapted new programs and new ways of new equipments for our online services and stuff like that. So you know again, it's hard. It was heartbreaking when we find out that we got outbidded for where
Yeah.
we are, but it's not the end of the world. And we, Sarah and I, have been through a lot of these kind of like
Yeah.
tiny, like, at a time feels like life changing, but then 2 years later we were like, oh, that was
Oh.
fine. Like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
adapted it, we figured
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
so we just have
I
to
get
keep
that.
keep doing what we do best, and keeping um what's the core paradigm, the core of
Yeah.
paradigm. As long as we follow that, and I feel like we can make it,
Yeah.
because, and a lot of it because of the people that our audience believe what we do and show the support that we needed.
We know that whenever we do have like next steps to share with everyone, I like every time I talk to different people, they say, "How is it going? Have you figured out what you're doing?" And I was like, "I feel like we're getting closer," and I feel like, and but like we wouldn't be able to do this with without all the support that we have behind us, and all the people kind of constantly checking in on us. And yeah, I feel like we're able to accomplish so much more knowing we have all that support behind us, and that when we do have a plan, like when we do form a new plan, when we do have hopefully good news to share after all this hard work, and after we had to kind of pivot, that we'll have this whole community behind us.
No, and also, I think as a business owner, as it's it's just amazing to know that no matter what, because I think as business we're always coming up with hiccups, and at that moment it feels like, oh my goodness, you know what do I do now? And then once you get through it, and you feel like, okay, oh, it wasn't such a big deal. But at that point when you're going through it, it feels like that. But just the thought of knowing that, even if it's a hiccup, but when you know that the people that you're doing this for, when you have them by your side, I think it makes a huge difference, because you don't feel, I think entrepreneurship, and that's, I'm really interested in asking this question. I truly feel like being an artist and being an entrepreneur are two very similar experiences. I know I experienced both of them, and I know you too. And why I say this is because, as I feel like you both are working as partners, but like, let's say for me, I run Arts Through Hearts as a founder alone, but I have an amazing team. But even then, it's a very, very lonely process. And similarly, being an artist is also a lot of solitary work. So I'm really interested in knowing that, how does it work for you? Do you guys think of your roles as artists and then as creative entrepreneurs, as business owners? How do they align for you?
I think it's combined for me and a bit separated for different parts of Jason's life. I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jason. Um, but I think that like I've put all of my creativity into, and I like a good challenge, and so constantly coming up with new ideas and new initiatives and new just I'm always looking for a new challenge that can expand or grow or further level up the business. And for me, I actually think that I realized that I could transfer all of my creative energy into that. Like the beginning of the pandemic was a really good example, because we had just planned all these events for our 10-year anniversary right before the pandemic, and that felt like a whole cool like
Yeah.
project management slash creative endeavor, and brought 10 years of Paradigm and our history together. And then like 2 weeks later, I felt like the rug was pulled out from under us. Yeah, and so, I feel like I gave myself like a day or two to just breathe and take in, okay, well, get groceries, get toilet paper. I gave myself a couple days to do that, but after that, I was like on the phone with our PR team. Okay, well, everyone's going to have to adapt to this. How are we going to do it before everyone else? I need a 360-degree camera, like look at what they use in real estate. We're gonna set that up. Um, we're gonna set up
I
all
love
this
what you did
online
with that, though.
programming. Thank you so much. And because we realized everyone's gonna have to adapt, and whoever does it the fastest
Yeah.
is gonna get noticed. And there was also this opportunity that we're a smaller gallery, mostly run by Jason and I, and we have two wonderful employees as well. But for the whole context of our existence, you know, we're a small space. We're a small
Yeah.
team, and it was this opportunity where the playing field actually kind of got leveled a little bit, because there are all these galleries that are so much bigger than us all around the world, and all of a sudden, like all everyone had to work with was the internet, and we were so
Yes.
well equipped to talk about ourselves, to show artwork
Yes.
that way. And I took your question into this whole other direction, but it all tapped into like
No,
then
it sounds great.
I feel like I got so creative. Like I felt like it really tapped. I felt more creative than I had in years, because it was just, like everything was just leveled out. In a way, sky's the
Yeah.
limit for how we can stand out and use this really tough time to further
Yeah.
ourselves, to keep our artists getting paid, and all of that. And so the business has, it's really, for me, it's blend. To go back to your original question, for me, I definitely think that I have always been a creative person, and I wasn't quite sure where I was going to put all of that energy. And running a business for me ended up,
Made
and
that.
obviously curating and art advisory and the design aspect of that ended up being where all of my creative energy went. So it's kind of all trolled together for me.
It became one package for
Yes,
you. Yeah.
100%.
Yes. But you know what? What you said, I really think I really resonate with that. And it didn't come to me before, like just before you said that. Something that I also resonate with, the idea that with COVID, how even like how hard it was also like, I as someone who was running this business, even as an artist, I felt more creative and also at par, because to be honest, like in pre-COVID times, like, getting into circles and getting into spaces, putting your work in spaces where all other artists or business owners or like had access to it was really hard. With COVID, I felt like everybody came on ground zero, and then it was just how you build on it, and it felt
Mhm.
fair, and it gave
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah.
chances to people like us.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
What about you, Jason? What do you think about this?
I have to say it's a little different for me because like I said, I like what Sarah had mentioned, like I don't because my our roles are very different. I often tell people Sarah does what she does and she allowed me to do what I do for for Paradigm. Um but it's kind of true though in a way, because I looked at Sarah as a leader, that she makes decision that I will support. Like she has a brilliant brain and ideas that needed support, and I feel like if I was able
Mhm.
to do that for her, is able like we able to make these work. And I can't say as much that I have to set, like I said earlier, I have to separate myself for what I do for Paradigm, because a lot of it is very technical. It's not so much of like I don't really get to be super uh, um, artistic with it. With my own work, I get to experiment. I get to do whatever I need to get to a place where I'm satisfied with my work. But with Paradigm, a lot of it has standards. Like the photograph has to be clean. All of the artwork has to be photographed a certain way, and a lot of like different shots needed to be done. So like there's a standards for what I do for Paradigm. It's again, it's very technical. So in a way, um I don't really feel like an artist when I'm at Paradigm. It's more like I know what I
Okay.
have to do,
Yeah.
and I have to figure out what I need to do. When Sarah has like a new project, we have to figure it out. Like that. A lot of that is coming from like technical backgrounds that I have. So, um, yeah. So I hope that answers your question. I already kind of.
No, it does. Okay, tell me something. Before we got into the call, you were also talking about Jason. We were just speaking about how, like, I grew up in India and I didn't have gallery influence, or I was in a small town. You were born in China. Sarah was born in the US. So I'm assuming, Sarah, you were still, and you were in Philly, around New York and Philly. So you were still familiar with, let's say, the art scene, what the art was. And US, I feel like, is still way more advanced. What was your experience with being like evolving as an artist and being into business, and how did you grow up seeing art and now being immersed in art in both aspects, being an artist and being a business owner of a gallery space?
I definitely feel that when I was in China, art was really not not really in my radar at all, because a lot of me growing up is very academic. Like I have to go to school at like 8 o'clock in the morning, but then doesn't get out until like 5. Um, and then the
Goodness.
rest of my nights are usually like for homework or practice for like other things. I was never really good at academics, so um, the very slight experience I had was that I was with a group of younger kids that are taking like very rudimentary drawing classes and watercolor painting as like as like a relaxation that I get to do. And I find it fascinating. And And at the time, it was also just like, oh, those are the times I don't have to do homework. I get to like actually play, and that's what art is to me at the time. Like it's play, and most of the art that I've seen are like from movies, TV, and like animation. So I was fascinated by animation from a very young age, and still are very fascinated by animation. So when I got to the US, I don't speak the language. I barely able to talk to anyone or understand anyone, and so I kind of uh, turned to art as a form of me spending time by myself, but also as a way of communicating in a way that like I get to show my friends some of the drawings I made, and and such, and I get to take art classes in high school. Thank God there's still art program. And then the reason why I went to an art college is really, really heavily because of the art teacher that I had in high school. She really um, encouraged me to find myself in art, and really pushed me to go to University of Arts, apply for it, because she thinks that this is the only thing that I am interested in. Like a lot of time, um, Asian households, they don't really see art as like
Yes,
a
I know.
viable
Oh,
option for career.
100%.
Right, but then my art teacher really pushed me to do that, and was uh, and I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed um, my college life and whatnot, and and the friends that I made along the way, like Sarah, and I also have a different business that does animation, and all of those are actually people that I met from college, and my life would be very different if I didn't go to art college.
Oh, wow. Wow. No, I completely relate to this because I feel like I grew up in India, and honestly, like, I, for a very long time, didn't even know an artist. Like, didn't even know being and my far-fetched dream was being a fashion designer. So I don't know if Sarah, I studied actually fashion, and then I mean fashion designer was the far-fetched idea for me. Even that felt like, oh my god, you know um like it was like it was a very unreal, impractical choice. And as growing in a patriarchal setup, it's like, okay, ultimately as a woman, you sew kids, and okay, maybe you'll just be a good wife, or like, it's not like, it's not a career. So definitely, like, it feels like it was a big leap. What about you, Sarah?
I definitely feel lucky that I had a lot of exposure to the arts growing up. I came from like a very, it's called, the town I grew up right by is called New Hope, and it's just outside the city of Philadelphia. And it's a very
Oh
artistic
wow.
town. And so I especially when it comes to performing arts, and so I feel really lucky that I was definitely surrounded by performing art and music, and um I did not view it as something that you did for a career. But I was very exposed to the existence. Fine art was not really something that I had a lot of exposure to, not to like a huge extent at least, but the arts in general, I definitely had a lot of exposure to. Um, my dad's like a car insurance agent. My mom is a preschool teacher, and what, two jobs that are just like they don't need like it's like they're both really good at it, but the two jobs that like don't really need an
Yes,
explanation,
yes.
aren't really like complicated for someone to understand. Um, and I do remember when I started applying to colleges initially, I really like math, which is good because
Oh my
a lot,
goodness.
bookkeeping and accounting is necessary. Um, But I really originally kind of thought I was going to be an engineer, and it wasn't until like towards the very end of my high school years, and from I think when I was 14 or 15 is when I started working at a hair salon, and that was my like after school job. That definitely taps into creativity for sure. But when I started applying to colleges, I didn't even tell my parents where I was applying at first because I just didn't know how they'd feel about it, and they were asking me, and I don't worry about it. I'm applying to colleges. You don't need to worry about it. Like I had very much had that attitude. I'm going to college. Don't worry, I'm going to college, kind of thing. But don't ask too many questions. And so it was just very, very much like I wasn't prepared for anyone to understand. um, and but I also do feel like when I chose theater design, at least coming from a family that like would go to community theater shows, at least there was like a relation there. And that when Jason and I were starting an art gallery, but we both had full time jobs. My full time job at that point in time was in fashion, and in technical design, so
Oh
like pattern
goodness.
making and all of that. Um, that it was just very much like a hobby. Like what we were doing at Paradigm was a hobby, and I feel like I've kind of eased the people around me into saying, well, actually, like we're making money. Actually, I think I'm going to quit my job. Actually, like slowly over the years, I feel like Jason and I have done similar versions of this. um, easing the people that have been with us since
Yes.
childhood, since our births, into the idea of but and then making sure to say, well, we pay artists and they've been able to quit their jobs too. We pay ourselves now, and all of this, and kind of I feel like I've done a lot of expressing
Oh
it like that.
wow.
It which is like yeah, so that's but I will say my family at this point in time, I do feel like
They
they
do.
get it, and that they're very supportive of it, and yeah, but it just I felt like I kind of eased everyone into it.
I'm going to take this strategy. What about you, Jason? Do your friends and family, especially in China, and of course things have changed now, but your role as an artist and then also being a gallery owner, do people understand? Like this comes to me a lot of times. Like people keep asking me, "What do you really do?" And I'm like, I really can't tell you in one word now because I don't have one job. What about you?
Well, friends that I have from China, like I kind of lost connection with them, but from time to time I did get to catch up, and they were like, "So what are you doing now?" I was like, "Well," and then the next 30 minutes would be me explaining. They were like, "Oh, okay, kind of cool." So yeah,
I
so it was
get
like
you.
just, oh, so you take photos for magazines? Like, no, 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 but okay, yeah, sure. It's yeah, similar. But for my yeah, but for my family, they I don't think they still understand, but they're supportive in a way that's like, oh, you've been doing this for 12 years and you still haven't quit
Yeah.
yet, so I guess cool. And
Yes.
also and
Yes.
recently my
Yes.
mom have like called me and be like, oh, I got your newsletter from Paradigm, and the stuff looks really good. I'm like, there you go, you get it now, that's cool.
Wow.
So
Aw.
there's that. Yeah.
My mom was very creative, and she, like, for a very long time she didn't understand that what I was doing, and honestly I also didn't understand what I was doing. I was also figuring it out. So even I was like, before I confuse them, let me figure it out what I really am doing. And even then she was very supportive, and she had a dream to be a creative. Like she was amazingly, like she was fashion creative, like she was outstanding. And she, even then she would be like shopping, like shouting on top of a roof, like, oh, this is what my daughter is doing. And even today, like my father now, like he doesn't understand, my family still doesn't understand, because in India it's still a very developing concept of, being an artist, like working artist, or having having an art business. And like, it's still very different. And they keep telling me, like, they keep asking me, what do you really do? And they're like, um at least you're paying your bills and you're living on your own. That means you're still making some sense, but they still don't understand what exactly goes into it. And one day they see me on a podcast, the other day they see me in a studio working on my own work, the third day they see me like in a project. And they're like, do you really have a job, or you
Mhm.
just, you know, that and that's really hard to explain. I think as creatives, it's so hard to explain that there's no one job role. Every day becomes a new project, and sometimes projects, like,
Right. It's like starting over almost every project that you learn something from your last project, but you're still trying to figure something out new almost every time, that come up. Like, 12 years later, we don't know we're gonna screw astroturf on our wall, but we figured it out,
Yeah,
you know?
we figured it
And
out.
like I've never made a pedestal before, but I did it. So again, it's all about, like, I think that's part about being creative, is that we are problem solvers. Like we look at different ways and we try different things too, and
yeah,
use our skill to improve it and do better. And then next thing you know, you're doing something completely new.
I think as far as our schedules in life too, I think that that's something that like I'm forever explaining to people not in the arts of people like understanding when we're at work and when we're available. And I'm like, well, that changes
yes,
every single day. So and like and I feel like sometimes that's been an interesting conversation, I think, ongoing with my family, that like, well, there aren't I create my own set work hours, but like, well, how many days a week do you work? Well, I'm like, well, like 7, but I do try to make time where I'm not working too. And I feel like like the fluid work schedule, I think, has also been something that's like very hard to describe to someone that's not a creative, and the combination of not a creative and not in our generation, because I think also, even if you're not a creative, so many people are just
yes,
freelancers in general. So, whether in the gig economy as we see it now. So that's been another thing that's like, I'm like learning how to communicate
yes.
when I'm at work and when I'm
Yeah. And
not.
I think also something that, because it's not like a fixed 9 to 5, or like, when you have a specific space, I think, like, we, like, for me at least, I know if I'm recording a podcast, I have a very different mindset of a space I want to be in. If I'm making the work, if, I want to be in a studio or at home, or if I have like something else that I need to meet someone, like, or a lot of times I prefer to work at home because anything can be done at home as well. But a lot of times people don't understand that even if you're doing nothing, or even if you're just doing research, or even if you're still working, like, even setting boundaries in that context is very, very hard. What has that been something with you?
Thankfully, I think both of our partners understand. At least they both understand, and also both remind us to not be working sometimes. But we both have partners that understand passions and creativity, and so our as far as like Jason's wife definitely understands, my partner definitely understands, and so I think as far as like our home life goes, I do feel like there is an understanding, and then always a conversation of, okay, but you can't be at work 100% of the time. Which is good. Like, it's good to have someone in your life
Yes.
say that to you. Because we each like love our partners so much and do want to make sure that we set aside time for them and have dinner together. Like things like meals are very important to Jason and I, like in general in life. And so like it's really important to me that I eat with my partner. Like that's that we take a pause. And Jason and I both like cooking, and so like it's important to both of us that that we make sure to do that. That's kind of like sanity. So as far as at home, there's that. But I will say that if I depending on who I'm with, or like the people I'm with, or if someone, or even if it's something, I don't know, so simple as like it's really easy for it to not seem like I'm at work when I am at work.
Yes.
Or I think that's like another way to relate that is when we're at the gallery and we're throwing an event,
Yes. Yes.
like we have to remind, like sometimes I feel like I have to remind people a little bit that like, no, I'm not like an attendee of this
Yes.
event, I am running it.
Yes.
So like the way you navigate conversations, and like, our friends come out, so we do get to hang out with our friends. But I also have to always say, like, I'm sorry if my eyes are darting, I'm just making sure someone doesn't need me right now, or something like that. Like, so I think that we're always looking for the balance of, I think we're a lot of times we're in places where people are going with their free
Yes.
time. People go to galleries in their free times, go to gallery events, go to art fairs, all these things, and we're at work.
Love that. I think I completely agree to that. That's so amazing, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. But I have one last thing before I let you go. I know we're stretched on time. So I have a rapid fire that I want you both to brace up for. So are you ready?
Okay.
So one, two, three, here we go. Okay, Jason. One thing you want to convey through your work in the arts.
Time.
Love that. Actually makes sense. Yes, Sarah.
Community.
Love that. Yes. What's that one word that describes you the best?
Weird.
Oh man, does that mean I have to choose a different one?
No, you don't have to. You can do the same one.
Yeah, weird. I'm
We
gonna
can
go
be
weird.
weird
Yeah, let's
together.
be weird together.
Love that. Okay. If you could have a gallery or your studio in any part of the world, where would it be?
We already have it. It's in Philadelphia.
What about you, Sarah?
I could give an answer for my second choice because I completely agree with Jason's statement. Our community is here. But I know my second choice would definitely be, or my two second choices, would be Mexico City and Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
I would also be okay with those two.
But we don't have to give up Philadelphia for that, we could just add on.
Yeah. We can have someone run it. It's fine. We'll be at either Tokyo
Yes,
or
yes.
Mexico. Yeah.
I'm sure that'll happen. Yeah. And then more. And then maybe somewhere, another beautiful exotic space. Okay. Your biggest source of inspiration.
Oh boy. I have several actually. So definitely from animation, from film.
Anything will do.
And honestly, this sounds like a art school answer, but Vincent van Gogh.
Oh.
But yeah, I really like Vincent van Gogh.
Yes. No, it makes sense. What about you, Sarah?
I know I'm a bit repeating my answer, but recently in my creative life, I have been most inspired by our community. Like, it's really just like, that's like been my driving creative force. But if we're talking like artists that have inspired us the most, Belkis Ayon and Nick Cave are definitely two huge influences.
Okay. Who's your go-to person when you're in trouble or in need of advice?
Sarah.
Jason.
This is like a group answering.
And we have to call out. Yeah, I know. We have to call out also Ginger Rudolph and she was one of the people I would highly recommend for your podcast. Ginger Rudolph is the third part of us. We have like a mural company, Haha by Paradigm, with her. And I would say if I'm not going to Jason for advice, I'm going to Ginger for advice. And it really just depends on, where sometimes it's whoever is closest to me. And sometimes it's the subject matter, or sometimes, but yeah, Ginger would
Let's get her on the podcast then.
When I need advice. Yeah.
I'm interested in this one. Tell me, each one of you, and this you won't repeat. Okay, we have a condition on this one. So, this is more than one rapid fire question. And you can choose to answer Jason, Sarah, both as an artist or as a business owner. But can you share one moment, one moment that you really feel special, that you still celebrate and savor till today, that's very close to your heart, and you feel very grateful for doing the work that you're doing today. I think experience and moments that we experience sometimes that feel very special, and give you a sense of this completeness of why you are on this path. Jason is really like
Um,
he's pushed himself as he's looking.
that it's the ADHD in me that I often forget about things, but um,
No,
I
you can take your
really
time. We are here.
it's the I really want to say it's the time where the times that we actually get to sit together with Sarah, with her partner Langston, our friends that have it's not in the gallery, but it's usually outside of the gallery when
Yeah.
we are just being ourselves, just chatting between us, having a good time, often at Sarah's backyard, you know, having a drink, having dinner. Just like those are a time that I cherish,
You feel.
and I don't think this would happen if we didn't start Paradigm 12 years ago.
That's a really good answer. I feel that, and I would say that, like, I've really thought about. I don't know I forget what made me think about it, but I was like really thinking about the question of like, what's my
Yeah.
greatest weakness? And I've come to the conclusion that my greatest weakness is not taking the time to soak in the things we've just done or the things we've just accomplished, and not taking the time to reflect on it, being like, cool, checked it off the list. Even if we accomplish something incredible, that I just have this tendency to
What's
like,
next?
okay, done, moving on, no time to think about it. And what Jason's talking about are those moments where we've taken the time to reflect on it, and to reflect, and like actually taking a moment of relaxation with the people that we've accomplished really great things with. And those end up being those moments, and it's something that I'm trying to strengthen myself personally, that I'm trying to, like, I think it's good to think about what your greatest weakness is, and like what you can do to improve that, and it's definitely through what
I
Jason's
love that.
talking about.
But also, Jason, do you think it's also because you come from an immigrant, like, and it was like for me sometimes being here in India and having a global community, running a creative business, being an artist. Sometimes it's like you, Sarah, said, like I'm also a person who keeps like, what's next, what's next, what's next. But also, like, when I take a moment, I'm like, truly, do I get to do this, or like living a creative life, or like painting yourself, like I spend this time and I do this and I get to live this life. It feels like it feels surreal, it feels unreal that you're sitting in this part of the world making a life as an artist, or
I mean, as an immigrant, as like a person that I am, I do feel like I am constantly having to prove myself whether or not I could do this.
yeah.
Whether or not it's to the people that I know or to myself, honestly. And I often forget or overlook like what Sarah said, that like the moments that I cherish the most are the people that are in my life that have supported us and became friend, um, and that I actually get to spend the time with them, and like forget about art, forget about the business for a second, because like that's secondary to me, honestly. Throughout the 12 years, it's the friends and the people, like I said,
Yeah.
Paradigm is a family to me. So all of the people that we have in our lives right now are most charitable to me.
I love that. No, that I think that's why it shows in everything you do. I think you truly like you radiate that energy. Okay, if you were to meet younger Sarah and Jason today, what advice would you give them?
uh
I don't know. I wouldn't want to screw anything up, right? I feel like all my mistakes led to us doing what we did, right? So maybe I don't give any advice.
I just say stick with Sarah. She's a good egg.
This is an amazing advice. That's a great advice, actually. Works for
Yeah,
both
I
of
like
you.
that. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
Oh,
stick with
wow.
Sarah, Sarah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I obviously I meant stick with Jason.
Okay. Shout out to an artist or two that you're currently loving on social media, especially.
Oh
I
man.
love this question.
Two artists. One I definitely Samuel David Stern. He's been a good influence and a good artist to watch for a very long time. Uh, the other one, let me see. I want to say a good friend of ours, Alex Emenlon, because he's definitely an artist that
Oh, okay.
I really appreciate and like seeing him grow as an artist and a collaborator. Honestly, we've been
Yeah.
working on something together for a good like 5 years, and it's always fun to see his work. Every time I saw his feed, I was like, oh yes, awesome, something new, and like I get me excited.
Oh, wow. Love that. I'm going to link both of them in the show notes. What about you, Sarah?
I would say an artist that I think I sent a video to Jason this week. India Rose
You.
Crawford is an artist that this week has been bringing me a lot of joy. I think I probably have, I don't want to credit the wrong publication, but I'm
Oh,
guessing I
wow.
discovered this artist because of Colossal. I'm checking my phone and making sure that I'm crediting um, the correct publication. But yeah, her animations have been just bringing me so much joy.
I can't wait to check out. I will link all of them in the show notes and make sure that we also follow them. Okay, last question. As creative entrepreneurs, artists, yourself, what is that one piece of advice you'd like to give to people who are listening to this episode? Looking forward, one last thing before we close it.
Um, Definitely stay true to what you believed in and take your time. Honestly, really take your time. um it took us 12 years to get here and we're still going, and it's not a race, it's a marathon, or marathon is a race, I'm sorry. It's not but it's not a sprint. So I think it's anything that's worth doing takes time, and it's like good wine, like it takes time to ferment. It takes time to appreciate, to learn to appreciate, and I think that is, yeah, allow yourself time to do the things you need to do to get to where you need to get to, because a day worth of work a lot of time doesn't mean a whole lot, but 10 years worth of work, yeah, that's a portfolio.
Yeah, love that. That's a great advice,
Mhm.
Jason. Thank you.
I think for me, I think that, and this relates to what Jason was saying, but don't like make sure to keep relationships strong of people that um like have faith in you, have patience with you, want to see you grow, like want to see you be your greatest self. Those friends or family, whoever they are in your life, like there is just no way we would have accomplished what we've accomplished so far and what I believe we'll accomplish in the future had we not been surrounded by people that believe we can do it and that are constantly by our side to tell us that we can, and that they're here to show us love and give us support. And there's just absolutely no way we could have done this, like we could have created what we've created in a vacuum. So I think that like it making sure to put into those relationships what they deserve.
I love that. And that absolutely, like, that's a golden advice. I think that something I feel like constantly, even in spite of all the conversations that we've had in this episode, the community and the love that you feel and that you've put into all the work that you do, I think it's a big one. And it's a testament. Like, I'm sitting here in India, but And I think for the past 2.5, 3 years, I've been following you, and I think I have truly seen that with just internet. And I think it's not that often that you experience that. So I think you're doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and I'm so glad that we had this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really, really good to hear that. And we appreciate, I think that you're doing the same thing. You're really building a community with what you do, and you're really open in the way that you share, and it's really appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, one last thing. Where can people find you? Any yourself, if they want to follow you, your work, the gallery, any new project that you want to share with us, feel free.
So the gallery is at Paradigm GS. So it's like G for gallery, S for studio. So at Paradigm GS. And then we have a few different social media accounts. We mentioned Ginger Rudolph, and
Yes,
Ginger runs at haha x paradigm, and we like refer to that as haha by paradigm, but it's HAHAX paradigm. Paradigm is PARADIGM. And Paradigm Art Advisory.
I will
All
link all.
those are three of our social media accounts. And then I'll let Jason say his personal one. Thank you.
Yes, Jason.
I am going to plug well, Paradigm for sure. But then, my personal account, that Chinese kid. And
Yes.
I want to plug a new, well, a recently finished project. It's a documentary film that I've worked with a local artist curating. What do you call that, Sarah?
Curatorial Collective, I guess.
Yeah, curatorial collective on a
Oh wow, Sarah has like a
yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
She knows. That's why it's like every time you don't know anything, just go to
yeah.
Sarah. So I have recently
I'm coming to you, Sarah.
I've recently directed a documentary film. It's a short documentary. It's like a 20-minute thing. So we will be having a premiere on the 19th of October at the Navy Yard, Central Green Navy Yard. So people that can come, great. If not, we will make sure that we will have a link uploaded, ready to go and to share. So also follow Group X Projects on Instagram to get all of the information for the documentary and all of the projects that they have done in the past. Fantastic work.
I can't wait to see. Why don't you do something, Jason? Why don't you send us all of this? And I want to make sure that we upload this on our website and, even post when it goes live and, help just share this with our own community and newsletter.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I think we'd love that. We'll add everything Jason and Sarah has mentioned in the show notes. We'll also share Jason's project, and I'm really excited to see that Chinese kid now. So we'll have everything in the show notes. Thank you so much, guys. It was very nice to speaking both of you.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find all the details and links mentioned in the show notes of this episode available on www.arts2heartsproject.com. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag us in your stories and leave us a review here on iTunes or any of your favorite platforms. It really helps us to keep the show going. Thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love, and I can't wait to be back here soon again. Bye.